The anime kicks off with Yatsuya, the main character, taking down enemies while reflecting on how this strange new world feels far more thrilling than Tokyo. Not long ago, he was just a student in class, where he and the others noticed that 2 girls were absent yet again, something that had been happening regularly. The following day, he's caught off guard when the beautiful and popular Yuka Shindo returns, especially because she's seen chatting with Kusu Hakuzaki, a classmate he didn't think she was close with. Later, when the teacher asks Yatsuya to complete a university interest form and steps out of the room, he tells the girls he'll lock up the classroom. But when he turns around, they've vanished, and suddenly, he finds himself in a strange lake surrounded by monsters. Even more baffling, both Shindo and Hakuzaki are there with him. A disfigured man missing half his head appears, calling himself the game master. He says he's supposed to explain the rules, but most of the guidance will come from his classmates as the journey progresses. He introduces the steps of the mission system and tells them that every time they finish a mission, a new teammate will be added. At this point, they're on their 3rd task, which is to fulfill a request from a boss. But first, the game master spins a roulette wheel to determine Yatsuya's role. Though the girls hope for him to be a warrior, fate decides he'll be a farmer, which disappoints them. Once the game master disappears, the girls reveal their own role, as Shindo is a wind mage and Hakuzaki is a warrior. They explain that Shindo was the first to arrive in this world, and the ruler had asked her to get close to Hakuzaki, so she did, knowing Yatsuya would be the next to arrive. On their journey, they're suddenly attacked by goblins. Yatsuya tries to fight back, but his scythe shatters. He calls on the girls for help, hoping their powers will save them. But Shindo's wind magic is too weak, and Hakuzaki is too terrified to fight, so she hurls the goblin's own sword at it, knocking it down. Yatsuya sees the weapon and tries to use it, but can't. It only works for someone with the warrior class. Left with no choice, he grabs his backup weapon, which also breaks, and he's knocked out. When he regains consciousness, he sees his body lying there and assumes he's died, but then he revives. Shindo explains that in this world they come back to life after 30 seconds. Using this to his advantage, Yatsuya sacrifices himself to finally defeat the goblins. After the battle, Yatsuya is surprised the girls had survived previous missions. Shindo explains that if they all die at once, their deaths become permanent, even in the real world. That night, curious about the rewards for completing missions, Yatsuya asked what they received. Shindo says each winner can ask the game master one question. She had used hers to ask why she was chosen, and he answered that someone she knows had requested it. Hakuzaki had asked about her own origin and discovered she came from the far future, leaving Yatsuya pondering what he should ask. Later that night, while wandering to clear his mind, Yatsuya hears a noise near where the girls are resting. When he rushes back, he finds everything engulfed in flames and Hakuzaki badly injured, missing parts of her body. Looking up, he sees a massive monster gripping Shindo. She begs him to escape, saying they can't defeat it. In the next moment, the creature devours her, leaving Yatsuya frozen in horror, realizing that if he dies too, they'll all truly perish. Yatsuya lifts Hakuzaki and escapes the burning area, but before leaving completely, he shouts back that they'll head for the village, even though he's unsure if she can hear him. The following morning, Kusu has fully regenerated, except for her arm. She explains that it couldn't grow back because the monster had eaten it. This makes Yatsuya believe Shindo won't revive at all, reinforcing the grim reality of their situation. Now, his only goal is to finish the mission, hoping it might bring her back somehow. When they arrive at the village, the locals greet them as heroes, just like in video games. Meeting the village chief, they're given a task, and by chance it's to slay the same troll that devoured Shindo. Fueled by anger and grief, Yatsuya decides to train solo, hoping to grow stronger and handle the monster himself. He heads off to fight goblins and other weaker creatures, knowing his low level won't be enough against the troll. During his journey, he stumbles upon a journal filled with memories from this world. Upon touching it, he sees a scene where his friends discuss who they'd like the next player to be. Hakuzaki mentions a classmate who practices judo, while Shindo surprises him by picking someone named Yatsuya. But since there's another student in their class with the same surname, he waits to hear which one she means. Just as she's about to say it, he sneezes, cutting the vision short and leaving the answer unknown. Now he's stuck wondering whether he's the chosen one or just a fluke. Later, he comes across another group of goblins and charges in, driven by fury. He wipes most of them out, but one escapes, leaving him stuck at level 9. He begins doubting the class he was given, wishing he'd been made a warrior instead. With a sword, maybe things would have turned out differently. While checking his journal again, he sees that Hakuzaki is seconds away from reviving. Alarmed, he rushes back only to find the village engulfed in flames. It's obvious the troll is responsible, and he panics at the thought of failing the mission. What happens if they don't complete it? Can they really die here? Permanently? Looking at the journal once more, he confirms that Hakuzaki revived, but if she's gone again, it must mean the monster devoured her too. Now he's the only one left. Continuing on, he finds another logbook. This time, he sees a memory of Kusu training with her sword while chatting with a village kid. She explains that back in her world, her illness prevented her from doing any physical activity, and her parents had to buy costly medicine just to manage her condition. She'd always felt like a burden there, but here, it's different. In this world, she can fight, and as long as she's able, she wants to help others. Hearing this stirs something in Yatsuya. He realizes that all this time, both in this world and back at school, he'd only ever focused on himself, blind to the feelings of those around him. Suddenly, the troll reappears. Yatsuya knows he's not ready to face it, so he turns to flee, but the troll chases him and lands a crushing blow. As he's knocked into the air, he remembers a childhood promise to return to his hometown with friends once they graduated. Holding onto that memory, and inspired by Hakuzaki's words, he keeps going. But he also knows deep down, running away forever isn't an option. Desperately trying to figure out a strategy, Yatsuya catches a break when a goblin shows up. He quickly defeats it, gaining just enough experience to level up. Suddenly time freezes and the game master returns, spinning the roulette once again to assign a new occupation. Yatsuya pleads for something powerful, like a warrior or anything that wields a blade. But instead, he's given the role of a cook. Though disappointed at first, his spirits lift when he realizes this job grants him a knife as a weapon and the ability to see inside monsters. As time resumes, Yatsuya slashes at the troll, injuring it. Because of this surprise strike, his teammates are revived. He quickly informs them about the troll's attack pattern, explaining they just need to dodge its jump. It'll eventually tire out due to the wound. With perfect timing, Shindo lands a surprise blow, and though they die and revive several times during the fight, they finally take down the monster. After the mission ends, the game master reappears to grant Yatsuya his question. Initially wanting to celebrate the win, Yatsuya instead decides, based on what the girls told him, to ask what happens once they finish the final mission. The game master shows them a vision of what's to come: Tokyo overrun by monsters, and among them, a giant dragon. As the vision fades, they find themselves back in the real world, stunned and unsure of what they just witnessed. Shindo thanks Yatsuya for saving her, admitting she wasn't sure he'd come back in time for the mission. Later, when Yatsuya walks Hakuzaki home, she thanks him too, but he tries to sound cool, brushing it off by saying that in worlds like that, it's only natural to say he'd protect her. Still, he can't stop thinking about the terrifying dragon he saw invading his city. The next day, Shindo is chatting with Kusu, who shares what happened on the walk home with Yatsuya. Shindo chuckles at the story, and when her friend Hashi appears, she asks if she knows him. Hashi vaguely remembers him transferring schools as a kid but says they never spoke. Shindo comments that Yatsuya seemed like a curious person. Meanwhile, Yatsuya is out jogging, his mind replaying the vision he saw, when the game master abruptly appears again with a new mission: he must win over a certain girl. He's led to a school, and when he arrives at the girl's bathroom, he spots a group filming a bespectacled student, the very person he must conquer. Confused about how to begin, and assuming she's being bullied, he smashes all the phones in a rage. The girls flee, leaving Yatsuya alone with the student, believing he's just saved her like a hero. Later, he escorts her home, thinking it's the gentlemanly thing to do, though she's baffled as to why he's still hanging around. Before she leaves, she explains that the girls were retaliating for something she'd done and recommends he watch a certain program to better understand how to impress girls. Back in his room, Yatsuya turns on the show she mentioned, but is abruptly transported back to the fantasy world. This time, he sees that the girl he just helped, Yuka Taket, is the fourth member of their team. Still confused, she panics when she sees the game master, unable to process what's happening. Once she's been assigned the role of a fire mage, the game master announces their new mission: they must explore 5% of the map. He also warns them that the time it takes to revive will increase. After giving these instructions, he disappears. Yatsuya tries to approach Yuka, but she backs away, shouting and calling him a pervert. Yuka's friends are confused by her reaction, so she explains how she met Yatsuya and that the girls who were with her had told her he was a creep who had installed hidden cameras in the bathroom. After that, the group sets out to tackle their mission, deciding it's best to split up and cover more territory. Shindo pairs up with Yuka and soon realizes the girl had made up the story. Still, she doesn't blame her. Yuka was just trying to fit in and avoid being mocked. Yuka admits she tries to keep up appearances but also takes action when she sees injustice, especially bullying, which she despises and always tries to stop. That evening, the group reconvenes, but they realize they didn't make much progress on the map. Suddenly, a massive insect appears, followed by several others that launch an attack. Yuka, excited by the situation and being a huge anime fan, jumps in eagerly, thinking her dream is finally coming true. But since she's only at level 1, her attacks do nothing. After reviving, Yatsuya steps in and begins fighting off the insects, surprising not just Shindo but also Yuka, who's impressed by his skills. Eventually, Yatsuya and Hakozaki finish off the monster. That night, Shindo has a haunting dream about her childhood friend, Suri, an older girl who had always been by her side. One night, something terrible happened, and as Shindo lay in bed pretending to sleep, she overheard her father say that the girl deserved it because of her looks. Shindo wakes up shaken and Yatsuya, thinking it might have been due to his late night training, apologizes. But seeing her so down, something he'd never seen in school, he knows it's deeper than that. When he gently asks why she was crying, she grabs his hand and pleads for his help. Opening up, Shindo tells him that as a child, she was wild and reckless, until she met Suri, the friend who changed her life. They became inseparable, but Suri, a victim of school bullying with no one to confide in, ended up taking her own life. Shindo was devastated. Later, when she entered elementary school, she experienced similar bullying herself, but this time, her friends supported her. That's when she realized they were her true strength. Since then, she's worked hard to improve herself and never fall into the same darkness. But now, in this unfamiliar world, she fears losing everything again, and begs Yatsuya not to let her fail. The next morning, the group arrives at the village where they once faced the troll, only to find it in complete ruin. A villager riding a cart tells them no one has lived there for 4 years. Remembering the boy she'd once spoken to, Hakuzaki silently hopes he's still alive. Meanwhile, Yatsuya uses the moment to ask about Ridoro, as his mission involves delivering goods to him. Fortunately, Ridoro is still alive, though he lives on the opposite end of the continent. Reaching him on horseback would take around 30 days. To speed things up, the group decides to enter an upcoming tournament since the prize is 3 horses. While traveling, they sense a presence nearby, expecting goblins, but instead they're ambushed by human bandits. Yatsuya jumps into action, but when he injures one of them, he's shocked to see his experience points drop, lowering his level. They're forced to retreat. Shindo creates a diversion with her wind powers, allowing the others to escape. But when they regroup, they realize she's missing. Assuming she's been captured, they feel a growing sense of dread. Yatsuya, however, insists they must press forward. The mission is too important, even if they lose teammates, because finishing it is the only way to return home with everyone alive. Yuka is furious. She reveals she overheard him and Shindo talking the previous night and can't understand why he's suddenly refusing to help her now, especially after she'd asked him to. Yatsuya stands firm, believing that pushing through is the only way he can ultimately save her, even if it means putting himself at risk. Yuka isn't convinced and goes off to speak privately with Hakuzaki. Yuka and Hakuzaki head off together in search of their missing friend, leaving Yatsuya once again alone on the road. Though determined to save Shindo, the girls fall into the hands of the same bandits and are taken prisoner. When Yatsuya learns of their capture, he realizes with a heavy heart that he's truly on his own now. Not long after, goblins appear in his path, but he swiftly defeats them all. His reward a level up in a new class. This time he's been given the role of a biological mage. While the girls sit in prison, thinking bitterly about the teammate who won't come to rescue them, Yatsuya arrives at the tournament grounds. Confident that he can win within 5 seconds, he challenges a knight but is swiftly defeated. After reviving, he asks to borrow a horse so he can reach Ridoro in just a few days. The knight, who turns out to be a young woman named Kavel, agrees, but only if he helps eliminate a group of trolls. Remembering the bandits who kidnapped his friends and knowing where their hideout is, Yatsuya offers to help track them down instead. Later that day, Kavel begins training Yatsuya in sword combat, aware that he's inexperienced. Despite his best efforts, he struggles with every attempt, as he's never been athletic in real life. Still, he doesn't give up. That night, Kavel leads a unit of soldiers, joined by Yatsuya, to the bandit hideout. A battle erupts and the army gains the upper hand. During the fight, Yatsuya discovers that when defending against human attacks, his experience points remain unaffected. But then, the bandits release a monstrous berserker. One of the soldiers explains, when someone consumes the flesh of a creature infused with too much magic, like a monster, they transform into one. Kavel takes on the berserker herself, thrilled by the challenge, but the difference in power and size quickly overwhelms her. Just before the beast delivers a finishing blow, Yatsuya intervenes. Though clearly outmatched, he recalls his new abilities as a biological mage. He uses them to distract and injure the berserker. Though it kills him in one brutal strike, his sacrifice gives Kavel the opening she needs to finish the creature off. With the bandits defeated and the girls rescued, Kavel offers them safe passage to Ridoro. In return, she asks that they give back the horse afterward and agree to train in swordsmanship. The next morning, the group sets out on their journey. On the way, Hakuzaki opens up, revealing that because of her illness, she could never engage in physical activity. Instead, she focused on research, trying to develop medicine that could cure both herself and her mother. But in this world, she's realized that what's necessary for survival has shifted. Violence, once unthinkable to her, is now essential. The following day, while resting at camp, Hakuzaki and Shindo remain disturbed by the violence they witnessed in battle. Neither has much of an appetite. Still, Kusu expresses her desire to protect both her friends and the people of this world, even if she feels powerless. She glances at Yatsuya, who's cheerfully cooking for everyone, though Yuka remarks that he's only doing it to gain more experience points. As the meal wraps up, Kavel approaches and announces that she wants to begin their training. However, the group isn't thrilled, especially after Yatsuya shared that, out of all their battles so far, he's only ever won 3. And now, Kavel has stopped holding back. She's using her real sword in practice, leaving actual cuts. Yuka trains first and returns complaining that even though she usually doesn't feel pain in this world, Kavel's strikes genuinely hurt. Next is Hakuzaki, who struggles to even lift her weapon. Kavel notes that this will take time. Just then, some of Kavel's soldiers arrive, reporting that goblins have launched an attack. Yatsuya immediately jumps in to assist, using his skills to heal the wounded soldiers. Yuka keeps complaining that Yatsuya keeps gaining experience without actually fighting, to which he sarcastically replies that she should file a complaint with the system. Kusu overhears them and quietly reflects on how the system itself is what brought them to this strange world in the first place. Later, the group comes across a goblin village. The soldiers suggest they take a detour to avoid trouble, but Yatsuya argues it's time they finally apply what they've been training for and fight. During the battle, Hakuzaki remains reluctant to engage until a goblin charges her. Almost instinctively, she lifts her sword and defeats it. But even in victory, she feels no joy. The sensation of ending a life leaves her disturbed. Kavel, however, praises her for her first real combat success. Meanwhile, Kusu is excited about the thrill of combat and openly admits she enjoys the feeling of victory. She rushes off, convinced more goblins are nearby, while Hakuzaki quietly resolves to push aside her discomfort. Her focus now is on escaping this world and achieving her goal. The following day, the group continues their journey. On the road, they come across a scene where civilians are being attacked by monsters. When Hakozaki hears there's a child involved, she remembers the villager boy and insists on helping. Her companions protest, worried it'll slow them down. But she remains firm, she'll go alone if necessary. She explains that surviving in this world would be meaningless if it meant ignoring people in need. Moved by her conviction, Yatsuya agrees to stay and help, while the others continue ahead, hoping to still reach their destination in time. When they arrive, they discover 3 merry kobolds, wolf-like creatures much stronger than average monsters. The soldiers barely react before the beasts charge. In the battle, Kusu is the first to fall. Yatsuya tries to fight one off but is struck from behind and also taken down. While waiting to revive, Hakozaki questions whether choosing to fight was even worth it. She doubts her ability, until she returns, braces herself, and waits. When one of the beasts lunges, she instinctively counters, killing it in one clean strike. Yatsuya watches in awe, realizing she's grown far stronger, but one creature remains. Just as things look grim, their friends arrive in the distance. Encouraged, Hakozaki calls out to her enemy, and with Kaval's help, they finish it off. After the dust settles, Yatsuya tends to the wounded. The soldiers reveal they're transporting goods to Rodoro, but something feels off. When asked about the people they're escorting, including the child, they mention the prisoners will be executed, labeling them criminals. This shocks the group, who realize their mission was to deliver supplies, not people. They don't yet know these civilians are actually being led to a sacrificial death. Kaval becomes furious with the soldier who explains this, particularly when he states that their kingdom is considering killing its own citizens while on foreign soil. She introduces herself with authority, but the man, Camilo, first corporal of the Dai Kingdom, dismisses her, smugly noting that his city is far larger. He demands respect, but Kaval refuses to bow to someone whose values clash with hers. Just as tensions rise and a confrontation is about to break out, Shindo steps in to de-escalate the situation. Afterward, the group gathers to discuss what to do. They ultimately decide to accompany the soldiers into the city, but with a plan to intervene if needed. They're determined to find a way to prevent the unjust execution of those innocent people. That night, the group speaks with one of the captives, a man named Fossil, a missionary from the A continent. He explains that he had once believed the kingdom would at least spare the life of the child, but that hope was shattered. The kingdom now persecutes even foreigners who follow Aros. He shares how, long ago, the city was torn between 2 factions, those who followed the king and those who worshipped a god. After the ensuing conflict, all forms of religion were outlawed. Later, the group confronts Camilo. He bluntly explains that the prisoners are to be executed as a warning. The D continent acts as a barrier to prevent the A continent from expanding. According to him, the current king transformed the nation, saving it from destruction by sheltering orphans and those unfit for war. To unify the continent under his rule, Camilo insists the religion of Aros must be eradicated. Yuka, disturbed, speaks out. She argues that wiping out smaller groups for the sake of the majority only fuels a vicious cycle. Camilo takes offense, claiming she's insulted his king and threatens her life. Yatsuya steps in to defuse the tension, saying it's just a conversation, though internally, he shares her sentiment. The next morning, Kaval trains Shindo. Even though Shindo has improved, Kaval tells her that in this world, a woman can't beat a man with brute strength alone. She must rely on finesse and technique, like fencing. Soon after, the party reaches the mountains. Camilo tells Yatsuya that their destination lies 12 days ahead, but there's a quicker route. They follow his lead only to realize too late it was a trap. Camilo abandons them, unwilling to travel with anyone sympathetic to Aro's faith. Now they've lost not only valuable time but also the prisoners they'd hoped to protect. Kaval urges the team to keep going. The cave has another exit. They press on, but the path is laced with traps. Yatsuya narrowly stops the first, but he falls into a deep pit during the second. Though he revives, he remains stuck. The girls, led by Hakozaki's quick thinking, solve the puzzle and continue forward, though they leave Yatsuya behind. At last, they reach the cave's end, but blocking their path is an arena and, across it, a massive gargoyle. Kaval warns that it's a mummified creature that can lie dormant for ages, yet the moment she finishes speaking it awakens. Meanwhile, Yatsuya tries to scale the pit using his knife to carve handholds into the wall. But his first attempt fails and he dies again. Still, he refuses to surrender. As he revives, he reflects on his loneliness, how even here he'd chosen to walk alone. That realization fuels his resolve. With renewed determination, he makes several attempts and finally climbs out. Back on solid ground, he heads toward the others, but the cave's darkness makes every step difficult. Along the way, he stumbles upon a checkpoint where his companions are mourning the loss of one of Kaval's soldiers. Memories of moments they shared flood his mind before he quietly continues on. At the cave's exit, the girls are engaged in battle. Kaval prepares to take on the gargoyle, while the others fend off a swarm of bats. During the fight, a soldier praises Shindo's quick reflexes. She credits her skill to years of playing tennis back in the real world. But the thought saddens her. That part of her life has faded since arriving in this world. Shindo says she'll keep training to grow stronger. But just then, the gargoyle strikes Kaval hard, wounding her severely and knocking her into the water. The girls are stunned. None expected Kaval to lose. As the monster turns its focus to Shindo and prepares to strike, time suddenly halts. Shindo recalls something: when someone reaches level 10, time freezes and the game master returns. Sure enough, the game master appears and spins the roulette to assign her a new occupation. When time resumes, Shindo has become a warrior swordswoman. Although she's no match for the gargoyle's strength, she remembers Kaval's advice: aim for vital spots when facing stronger opponents. Motivated by those words, Shindo grabs her sword and readies herself. Though the enemy strikes her arm, she avoids a direct hit, regains her grip, and lands a blow that injures the beast. Meanwhile, Yatsuya hurries toward the cave's exit, reflecting on the reason they were chosen and their larger purpose. Still, his main focus now is to stay with his group. And as the strongest among them, he steps into the role of leader. When he finally reaches the others, he finds that Shindo has already brought down the gargoyle. But seeing Kaval wounded and drifting in the water, he immediately dives in to save her. This action frustrates the girls. They recall how Yatsuya was once ready to leave them behind, yet he risked himself for Kaval. Later, when Kaval awakens, her injuries have been healed. One of her fellow soldiers explains that the heroes consumed the gargoyle's blood to trigger their healing powers. But the cost left Yatsuya completely drained and unconscious. When the soldier leaves, Kaval leans over and kisses Yatsuya to thank him. Just then, the girls arrive and catch her in the act. Confused, they listen as Kaval explains her reasoning. She kissed him because he reminds her of herself, someone also searching for meaning in this world. That night, as the girls sit together, Shindo suddenly panics. She realizes something in this mission: the goods they're meant to deliver might not be people. In previous missions, there were no strict definitions, no set villages, no specific enemies, just a vague objective. With that in mind, she concludes that goods could literally mean items or supplies. The girls are furious. If that's true, then all their efforts were for nothing. Hakozaki notices Yatsuya looking distant, as if considering abandoning their current path. She becomes upset, pointing out that the prisoners might lose their actual lives if they do nothing. Yatsuya responds by suggesting there's still a chance they are the real goods the mission refers to. Because of this uncertainty, he proposes they split into two groups to avoid failing the objective. Following this, Yatsuya outlines the plan. One group will pursue the D soldiers and attempt to rescue the prisoners, while the other will search for another shipment that might be headed to Ridoro. They'll divide their efforts and cover both possibilities. Kaval immediately chooses to go after the soldiers. She wants justice for her fallen comrade. The rest are left to decide which path to follow. By the next day, the groups have split. Shindo, Hakozaki, and the soldier Maka begin tracking a potential supply convoy headed toward Ridoro. Meanwhile, Kaval, Yatsuya, and Yuka set off in pursuit of Camilo's group. That night, as they camp, they discuss their next move. The soldier informs them that, before Camilo sealed them inside the cave, he likely sent out messages, meaning the D Kingdom already knows they're with citizens of Cal. If anything happens to those prisoners, it could ignite a war. Kaval, aware of the stakes, is visibly uneasy. That's when Yatsuya proposes a solution. Before they attempt a rescue, they must compel the soldiers to write a letter stating that Cal is not the enemy. This written proof could help clear them of blame. As he shares his plan, Yatsuya's expression twists into something unsettling. His face takes on the look of a villain plotting something devious, leaving the girls visibly shaken. Later, as the group prepares to execute their plan, Hakozaki turns to Yatsuya and says he's surprisingly good at crafting devious strategies, probably thanks to his experience with battle video games. She admits she plays games too, though hers are nothing like his. Then, with an awkward glance, she asks if a kiss in this world counts as a first kiss, clearly referring to the moment she saw Kaval kiss him. She admits she felt a bit jealous. Yatsuya replies that it probably does count after all. This world, despite being called a game, feels far too real. The following night, as one of the D soldiers gives a speech rallying his men, emphasizing how few days remain to complete their mission and contain enemy expansion, Yatsuya suddenly steps out of the shadows. His unexpected appearance shocks them. Calmly, he claims he's come to negotiate. He says most of their group perished, those who accompanied him died in the cave, and two of his allies fell into a well. Now, it's just him and Yuka. Trying to sell the ruse, Yuka keeps her distance and plays along, saying the only reason she's there is because negotiation benefits her too. Yatsuya then explains that as heroes, they can resurrect infinitely, so fighting them is pointless. Instead, he proposes a deal: release the hostages, or else he will begin spreading the forbidden faith of arrows across the land. As a devoted believer, he gives them until dawn to decide. After he leaves, the soldiers are unsure what to do, but Yuka appears again, offering to betray her companion and lead them straight to his location. The soldiers agree, completely falling into her trap. Later, Yuka guides them to a camp where Yatsuya is supposedly asleep, but before they arrive, one soldier stabs her just in case. When they search the site, they realize it was all a lie. And when Yuka revives, they take her hostage in retaliation. However, when they return to camp, Yatsuya is already there, calm, composed, and surrounded by freed prisoners. Their entire mission has failed. He explains that he never cared about their faith or arrows. He only wanted revenge for the friends he lost. Then, Yuka breaks free and flees to Yatsuya's side, the two escaping together while the soldiers chase after them, now fully regretting ever getting involved with the heroes. Yatsuya knows that with this move, the Kingdom of D will hesitate to interfere with the Kingdom of Sinil again. Once they regroup with their allies, who have been hiding in a cave, it's revealed that the team staged the entire scene with fake bodies to make the escape seem authentic. However, they had no choice but to kill the lone guard escorting them, otherwise the deception wouldn't have worked. Thanks to their plan, they avoided triggering a war. But Yuka can't help but ask, was it really necessary to take a life just to prevent greater bloodshed? Even if it's another world, it all feels painfully real. Yatsuya answers firmly if it's to protect the lives of his friends, then yes, he would do it again. Elsewhere, Soldier Kilo is shaken. All he wanted was to carry out his king's orders, but now he's been branded a failure. Just as he's preparing to report back, Kaval appears, very much alive. She stuns him as he believed Yatsuya's lie that she died in the cave. Without hesitation, she draws her sword and demands a duel. Kilo tries to avenge himself and fight for peace, but Kaval swiftly defeats him. Even his pleas that he only wanted peace cannot save him. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of D, the king receives word his forces have failed, and worse, those same powerful heroes are now aligned with the enemy. The implications are clear: a great war might be looming. As a precaution, the king commands one of his men to investigate the heroes and find a way to defeat them before it's too late. The next day, Yatsuya's group prepares to set out for the city of Reincarnated, noticing that the other team hasn't made much progress yet. Before they leave, Yatsuya helps load some boxes into the cart, filled with goods they're meant to deliver. Yuka, however, feels uneasy, especially with a small child riding along in the carriage. But the cheerful little boy smiles at her, saying he doesn't mind the bumpy ride. Caught off guard, Yuka blushes, confused by the fluttering feelings she's experiencing. As the journey continues, Yuka starts to notice something odd. Kaval seems quieter than usual. She assumes it's because Yatsuya didn't ride with her this time. When they take a break, Kaval approaches Yatsuya, clearly wanting to speak with him. But upon seeing Billy nearby, she simply turns and walks away. With a soft, sorrowful expression, she says only that her journey will soon end. Yuka, who overhears, realizes Kaval was trying to confess her feelings but lost her nerve. Inspired by her favorite dating sim, she decides to help bring the two closer together. Later, while resting again, Yuka encourages Yatsuya and Kaval to switch seats in the carriage, hoping a moment of intimacy will develop between them. But when she peeks in later, she finds both of them fast asleep. The plan failed. Not giving up, Yuka tries another classic setup, getting them to prepare food together. But that flops too. Desperate, she suggests a mock battle between them, thinking it might lead to a spark. But once again, nothing happens. Disappointed and emotionally drained, Yuka breaks down, yelling that this game isn't following the rules. Where's the romantic moment she's been trying so hard to create? Meanwhile, Shindu's team, still searching for a way to transport goods to Reincarnated, stumbles upon a merchant group already headed there. Shindu proposes they escort the caravan for protection. However, one merchant, fearing competition, tries to stop them. Fortunately, Yu quickly disables him and they continue on their way. That night, Yuka still isn't sure how to help Kaval. But as she begins to doze off, Kaval finally musters her courage and quietly approaches Yatsuya. Nervously, cheeks flushed, she thanks him for helping avenge her fallen friend. She admits she had wanted to say it earlier, but never found the right moment. Yatsuya calmly tells her that he, too, was angry about what happened and there was no need for thanks. Yuka, secretly listening in, feels her heart sink. That was it. That was her confession. The next day, the second group is still on their journey while Yatsuya's team finally reaches Reincarnated, with only one part of the mission left. Identifying the true goods, they start delivering the different cargoes one by one. First, they leave the rescued prisoners at a church for safety, but the mission doesn't complete. Next, they try handing over the soldiers' belongings, perhaps meant to be given to someone, but that also fails. They're left with one final cargo. Meanwhile, Shindu and Hakozaki are nearly at the city when they see a notification one of the missions has been completed. Yatsuya had handed over the corpses of the D soldiers, those who had plotted to execute hostages, to the Reincarnated soldiers as proof of what was planned. That move completes the mission, finally bringing the saga of the goods to a close. Now only one objective remains: explore 5% of the map. With the end in sight, the entire team regroups and splits up again to finish the task as efficiently as possible. But as they spread out across the snowy plains, the weather suddenly shifts. Flurries begin to fall from the sky. Kaval, who's been watching from afar, is warned by her soldier Makwa that a strong blizzard is approaching and they should delay their return trip. The locals had warned them of this, but Kaval doesn't answer immediately. Her thoughts are consumed by the heroes, especially him. She recalls the moment they parted ways. She'd said goodbye, but it hadn't felt right, not after what they'd been through, and certainly not after that kiss. Now, as the snow begins to blanket the ground, all she can do is hope that Yatsuya is safe, somewhere out there in the storm. As night begins to fall, the main character searches for clothes to protect himself from the cold, but nothing helps. While walking, he starts fearing that the freezing temperatures might kill him. If he happens to revive in that condition, his frozen body would lead to death again. To avoid dwelling on those thoughts, he keeps moving, trying to stay warm. Yuka, drained from the long walk, thinks about stopping, something she hadn't anticipated. But remembering the deadly cold pushes her forward. Her only drive is the hope of seeing her favorite video game character. Zaki uses her shield to block the wind and snow, determined not to quit. Being in better health in this world than in real life allows her to help others, and Shindu's gratitude for her support keeps her motivated to stay by her side. Shindu herself trudges on, the most resolved of them all. She recalls her arrival in this world and how everything she had worked for was stripped away. She refuses to lose again and pushes on until she encounters a statue. As time passes, the children grow increasingly fatigued. Hayaki notices they are getting closer to completing the mission, but suddenly collapses, hoping she doesn't die here. Meanwhile, the protagonist suspects two of the girls have fallen behind due to exhaustion. They simply weren't prepared for this ordeal. Pressing forward with just 6 hours left and part of the map still incomplete, he struggles to move his legs. This mission is more brutal than any before, taking a toll both mentally and physically, but someone must make it to the end. Just then, a monster appears before Yatsuya and attacks. He fends it off using his abilities, but when he realizes it had offspring, guilt creeps in. It may have only been defending them. As he reflects on his friends and continues ahead, he accidentally slips into a ravine. Now he understands that if he dies here, the mission and their lives back in reality are doomed. In the real world, we see a memory unfold. Heroines battle a villain named Lukal, who captures one of them. Despite his threats, their leader stands firm and defeats him using a powerful ability. This was a cherished memory from Yuka's childhood, her beloved Maja sisters. She once believed she could be like them, but life led her elsewhere. Seeking safety among people who sheltered her, she eventually betrayed them, and her friends turned on her. Yet a shared enemy brought them back together. Still, she now lacks the strength to carry on. Meanwhile, the protagonist survives the fall, landing in a hidden dungeon where he can warm up. But tragedy strikes. Hakak has frozen to death, and Shindu sank beneath an icy lake. With everything now resting on him, he presses forward. While exploring, he spots a struggling worm and decides to follow it. Unexpectedly, another worm ambushes him from behind and devours him. Yuka, aware that it's now up to her and Yatsuya, continues alone. But soon, she too collapses. She's the last one standing, but ultimately chooses to give up. A part of her feels at peace, finally having a reason to surrender. Just then, one of Yuka's beloved heroines appears before her, urging her to press on, reminding her that the Maja sisters never give up, and every time they fall, they rise again. Encouraged, Yuka gets to her feet, channels a new power, and chooses to continue, inspired by her favorite game character. As she nears exhaustion and almost drifts off, a woman arrives, identifies her as a player, and offers to help her finish the mission, riding on the back of a giant cat. When the mission time expires, the children regroup. Yuka attempts to speak up and claim some credit, but just then, the game master appears. It's time for the fourth member to ask a question. Though clearly annoyed, she asks if they're inside virtual reality. The game master replies that they are, in fact, living in a parallel world where everything, people, animals, oceans, and monsters, is entirely real. That's when it hits Yatsuya. He didn't just kill a character, he ended the life of a real person. The weight of that realization leaves him stunned. Back in the real world, Yatsuya can't shake off the game master's revelation. The fact that he truly took someone's life leaves him shaken and emotionally drained. Though he's always felt disconnected from others, this act haunts him, and even after days pass, his heart still won't settle. Meanwhile, Zaki trains her body and Shindu joins her. They talk about how the alternate world has helped the girls grow stronger. Despite her illness, Kuchu has also gained energy. Soon, they spot Yatsuya, who has kept his distance since their return. He's become isolated and difficult to approach, and his friends are concerned about what he's become. Later, Yatsuya walks home and receives an email from the game master. He knows he could ignore it, but finds it odd that he's been assigned another solo mission. The message simply asks how he feels after learning the truth and about his actions. Confused and unsettled, he deletes it. Once home, he's left wondering if everything that happened was part of some bigger plan. Suddenly, the game master shows up in person. Her reason for coming is his silence. Yatsuya admits part of him thinks those people deserve their fate since they tried to harm innocents. But at the same time, he knows they were simply lost. The game master repeats her question, and this time, Yatsuya answers he believes he made a mistake. Satisfied, she asks if he wants to meet the next player. Someone new is about to join his team. That night, the two meet at a restaurant. She tells him that the man present is a target of the fourth player, Tori, and Yatsuya must stop the mission. When three thugs suddenly enter, Yatsuya steps in, not because he has to, but because he doesn't want Tori to commit something terrible. Using the powers he gained in the other world, he easily defeats them. However, the mafia boss, alerted by the commotion, appears with a gun, ready to kill Yatsuya. He allows his opponent to escape, but the game master tosses him a mage glove just in time, helping him dodge the shot. She urges Tori to run from the cops, but not before Tori takes down the gangster who tried to shoot Yatsuya in the back. Afterward, the protagonist and the game master talk. Yatsuya realizes that every action in this world echoes in the other. By saving Yuka, she found the strength to continue. By stopping her compromising photos from spreading, she got to return to her safe space. And if he can protect this next player and his brother from arrest, it will change the course of the game. Still, Yatsuya tells her he doesn't believe human life holds any value, so the new player means nothing to him, aside from being the next one needed so the girls can keep leveling up. Even though he sees himself as insignificant in this world, he feels powerful and superior, determined not to fall behind. Kei managed to escape the police because of Yatsuya's help, but the whole situation began when Kei and his brother owed money to a mafia boss. To settle the debt and shield their mother from more suffering, they agreed to eliminate a traitor. But Yatsuya intervened before they could make a fatal mistake. A week passes after the last mission, and the group starts wondering when the next one will begin. Yatsuya tells them he's already met the fifth member, whom he calls garbage. The girls text him, curious what kind of trash he means, but before they get a reply, they're suddenly transported back into the fantasy world. A scream from the lake catches their attention. It's Kei emerging from the water. His appearance and clothes alarm the girls, making them suspicious. Just as he starts to speak, darkness falls and the game master appears behind him, startling him. She announces the next mission: they must present a Giffen Bafo at the V-Mania festival within 20 days. Kei's role is that of a Lancer warrior. After she disappears, Shindu quickly explains the situation, but Kei admits he doesn't really get it. Still, he accepts the task before walking away. But first, he challenges Yatsuya to a duel over their unresolved tension. To everyone's shock, Kei actually wins. The team teleports to Cal since they can now travel to places they've already visited. There, they begin gathering intel about their new mission. Upon entering the city, they bump into Cabal, who blushes. Her 2 sons are with her, which surprises the group, as they didn't expect such a transformation. Back at her home, Cabal admits she knows little about Bafo, but mentions a well-known island called Gifo, famous for its handcrafted weapons. She also shares that after they left, the Kingdom of Dio declared war, and several nations sided with Cal. She lost a hand in battle, and after having her sons, she gave up fighting, thinking she'd grown weaker. But the kids disagree. They know raising children is no easy task. Then, Kei jumps in and talks about how he witnessed his brother's birth. He and his sibling live with their mother, and because of their debt, they had to take on a dangerous job. He thanks Yatsuya for helping them escape that trap, even though they first clashed because Yatsuya had struck his younger brother early that morning. Later that night, Kyle asks to speak with Yatsuya in private. Once alone, she takes his hand and says she wants to watch the sunrise with him. Yatsuya apologizes, feeling responsible for the loss of her soldier's life. But she simply thanks him, calling the experience meaningful. She then asks whether her friends ever told him what happened the day he saved her. Realizing he had no idea, she gently grabs his arm, kisses him, and confesses her feelings, admitting she likes him but regrets that she's aged before him. Nearby, the girls secretly watch, feeling a bit disheartened by the scene. Meanwhile, Zaki unexpectedly reunites with the boy she once saved in the village. Now grown, he expresses deep gratitude for rescuing him from the troll. This reassures her that her actions had meaning, that saving him was worth it. The following day, the team arrives at Gifo Island, where they're greeted by 2 cheerful girls, Jana and Yu, ritual dancers who thought the group were mercenaries. Once they learn otherwise, their attitude shifts completely. Kei tells the group they might qualify as mercenaries if they can answer a few questions. The girls respond by explaining that Vikumania is a festival and the job Bafo is actually an animal. Yatsuya assumes they need to present the animal as a ceremonial offering during the festival, but the girls reveal the event hasn't been held in years. The reason? Orcs took over Kumo Castle, which led to war. Though the villagers surrendered, the orcs didn't view them as worthy adversaries, they used them as food. To avoid being eaten, the villagers began offering job Bafos as tribute. They started breeding these animals and continued the practice annually. But with the orc population growing and fewer animals remaining, it won't be long before the orcs turn to humans again. That's why the locals were seeking mercenaries to eliminate the orcs and restore peace. Unfortunately, a man overhears this discussion and rushes to inform the orc chieftain. The next day, the mercenaries begin training the villagers, including the heroes. However, the mercenary leader, Kantil, warns Yatsuya that his short weapons are useless against orcs, who are powerful and require long-range weapons to fight safely. Haki and Yuka also fail the assessment while Shindu and Kei pass. Upset, Yatsuya storms off, claiming he'll improve later. He approaches the victim girls, asking if there are any other monsters on the island. Luckily, they say no, their ancestors wiped out every other threat. With no monsters to hunt, Yatsuya has no choice but to gain experience through other means. He begins harvesting crops. However, a small earthquake strikes, damaging the field, and he realizes the food supply is at risk. Yana explains that the soil lacks nutrients. The fruits often don't ripen since only Bafo manure is used as fertilizer. But with fewer animals now, the problem worsens. Thinking quickly, Yatsuya suggests using algae and shells, which can decompose and enrich the soil. The girls are impressed, but when one of them, Y, accidentally reveals too much, U notices Yatsuya staring and gets annoyed. He quickly defends himself, saying they misunderstood. The girls then grow serious, revealing that they avoid men altogether. As ritual dancers, they must remain virgins, otherwise they must step down, and no one is left to take their place. Yatsuya, confused, asks how old they are. The mood turns somber as the girls explain that they were chosen when they were young and are now of legal age, but because of the orc invasion, replacements were never selected and others were eaten. Later, Yatsuya returns to his tasks, cooking to gain experience as a chef. He accelerates the fertilization process, surprising the girls when it actually works. Eventually, he grows tired and asks for a radio to listen to music while he works. The girls misunderstand. Thinking it's their duty, they begin singing for him. After they finish, Vua becomes angry, realizing it wasn't what he meant. Meanwhile, the mercenaries continue their training sessions with the villagers. But one of them voices frustration, arguing that the hired fighters are pushing the responsibility onto the islanders. The others explain that everyone agreed to stand up and fight because their home is under attack. Suddenly, an orc appears, and everyone except the locals rushes to confront it. Despite Shindu and Kei's efforts, both are killed with a single blow. Still, the girl witnesses the mercenaries' impressive strength and tactics. They manage to defeat the incredibly tough orc. After the battle ends, the group starts questioning why the monster left the castle and came directly to them. Suspicion arises someone among them must be a traitor. Some begin blaming the victim girls, accusing them of summoning the mercenaries. The heroes grow agitated, but a mercenary named Thaner steps forward, revealing he's also a native of the island. He challenges them by asking, what would their ancestors think of their actions? He then urges everyone to reflect on their ancestors, how hard they fought to shape the island into what it is today, and reminds them it's their responsibility to defend it. His words move the group, and their resolve to fight grows stronger. However, a traitor secretly listens in and rushes off to warn the orcs, who vow revenge for their fallen comrade. The following day, while the protagonist is busy suing, the game master arrives to spin the roulette. Yatsuya has finally reached level 10. Though initially annoyed when he lands on the blacksmith class, his attitude shifts upon realizing he can now forge weapons. He immediately heads to the village smithy and spends the entire night crafting gear for the upcoming battle. By morning, Yatsuya returns to training and unveils his new weapon, Orda. He also surprises the girls by presenting each of them with their own custom weapon. Kido then casually walks up and asks which of the 3 girls Yatsuya likes, confessing his own interest in Shindo, but Yatsuya thinks he's completely delusional. Later that evening, Hiyozaki visits Yatsuya, who hasn't stopped working. He explains that he's doing all this to keep both her and Shindu alive. It's his way of protecting them. Just then, Kantel arrives and overhears the conversation. He confesses that he was once a commander in his homeland's army, but every battle he led ended in defeat. Now, he's determined not to lose again. Not anything, not anyone. Suddenly, a villager rushes in and reports that orcs are attacking the port. Before rushing off, Rice shares his most treasured memory. Back when he was a kid, he and his friends worked for an arrogant noble but dreamed of joining Cell's army. They weren't skilled enough, and one day learned their country had fallen. Forced to flee, they were eventually captured by bandits who killed his friends. The others are stunned to hear that he considers such a painful memory his best. Yatsuya is especially taken aback by how Rice recounts his tragedy with a smile, leaving everyone uneasy. But another mercenary hugs Rice and tells him that this next victory will become his new favorite memory. That night, 3 orcs storm the village. The mercenaries rush to stop them, but not before the orcs kill several civilians. Shindu and Kido try to help, but their attacks aren't strong enough. They're quickly struck down and must wait for revival. As one orc turns on Kantel, Yatsuya steps in and slays it using his newly forged weapon. Still, the other orcs charge after the mercenary leader. Rice attempts to intervene but collapses along the way. His effort was merely a decoy, buying Yatsuya the chance to strike again. His second attack drives the orcs away. With the danger temporarily averted, preparations for the next battle begin. The wounded are taken to the ritual dancer's cave for treatment, while those able to fight head to higher ground to defend the village. Yuka and Haki are assigned to weaken the orcs using one of Yatsuya's weapons, while he and Rice focus on distracting the enemies. Soon, 2 orcs appear. Yatsuya and Rice lure them away, giving the girls a clean shot. During the attack, Yuka unexpectedly reaches level 10. The game master appears immediately to spin the roulette, and Yuka obtains the hunter class, thrilled because now she's one step closer to becoming just like her favorite video game character. At sunrise, the battle rages on. Another orc emerges, and the protagonist attempts to divert its attention, but it ignores him. Instead, the creature lifts a massive boulder and hurls it at the fort, aiming to breach it and reach the village. Chaos erupts as the villagers flee, and the girls scramble to take their shot but miss. Rice charges in to hold the line but is quickly taken down. When Yatsuya revives, he goes after the orc again, managing to kill one. With support from Yuka and Hakuak, they defeat the second. Sadly, Rice loses his life in the process. Grieving, the team gathers around, and before disappearing, Yatsuya tells him that now he can boast to his friends about fighting alongside Kantel. Elsewhere, one of the islanders relays the battle's outcome to the other teams, and everyone mourns Rice's death. Meanwhile, Kei is sent to reinforce the fort. After helping eliminate more orcs there, the girls realize they're out of ammo. They rush to restock. First at the blacksmith, who's still forging weapons, then to the ritual dancers for protection. Before they leave, Kiro quietly bids farewell to Rice. Later, Kantel informs Shindu that the orc count doesn't add up, something's off. Notably, the orc queen has yet to appear. Shindu checks on the evacuated children and finds that the orc queen has already reached the port. She's come for revenge. Angered by the fact that the islanders slaughtered her young, it was the humans who broke the treaty, igniting this war. Shindu and Kantel confront the queen as she targets the children. They manage to land a blow, but she's incredibly powerful. It isn't enough. Meanwhile, the other heroes are en route to the blacksmith, but on the way, they pass a hillside where they find an injured mercenary. He explains that 2 orcs attacked them. Though his partner killed one, the second fled, and Feimer gave chase. Yatsuya tends to the mercenary's wounds, healing him as best he can. They reach the blacksmiths, but since the weapons were crafted by Yatsuya, only the islanders can wield them. One villager takes a weapon and prepares to fire, while others head to the ritual dancer's cave with the injured. Across the island, the battle unfolds on all fronts. Danemer is locked in combat with the orc who escaped the earlier clash but is overpowered and flung aside by a single strike. At Kumo Castle, Yatsuya is joined by Kia, who commands the islanders to attack the orc stationed at the entrance. Meanwhile, Shindu and Kantel put their strategy into motion. It's effective, but just as they're about to strike, a massive earthquake rocks the island. The ritual dancers realize the earth is warning them. The volcano at Kumo Castle has erupted. Yatsuya commands everyone to move forward with heads down, but sees that Kia has been struck by flaming debris. He rushes to drag him to safety. Back at the ritual cave, evacuation begins. U runs back inside to save those still trapped, but the roof collapses. Baena, left outside, screams her name, powerless to help. Elsewhere near the Ivan coast, Shindu is momentarily distracted, and the orc queen uses that opening to toss her into the sea. Realizing she won't revive while submerged, Shindu watches helplessly. But then, she notices the water pulling back. A tsunami is coming. She screams for Kantel to run, but the mercenary leader refuses. He's determined to keep fighting. After the cave's roof collapses, Jana is too heartbroken to react to the chaos around her. Lost in grief, she begins to sing a ritual melody. One of the islanders recognizes the tune. It recounts the ancient disaster that once struck their homeland. As Yen sings this solemn song, Natural disasters begin wreaking havoc across the island. Meanwhile, Yu manages to lead the wounded out of the ruined cave through a hidden tunnel that connects to the castle. When they arrive, they find Yatsuya and several islanders already there, silently watching the devastation unfold. The protagonist attempts to bring the castle down but fails. He asks the ritual dancers if the fortress has a weak spot, hoping to collapse it along with the remaining orcs inside. But one of the girls becomes upset, reminding him that the castle is a symbol of the island, built by their ancestors and having survived countless quakes. Determined, Yatsuya enters the castle alone in search of a battleground where they might gain an upper hand. Yu recalls what he told her while she was helping at the blacksmith. How he'll do whatever it takes to reach his goal, even if it means sacrificing himself. His words echo again as long as he has a purpose. Nothing else matters, only success. After everything that's happened, the ritual dancers blame themselves. They were supposed to preserve and pass on the island's heritage, but by failing to do so, they believe the island's soul was lost, its homes destroyed, its people perished. Still, they resolve not to give up. Despite the destruction, the island will rise again. No disaster can erase its spirit. Suddenly, the volcano erupts once more, and from its core, a fire dragon emerges. In response, Yatsuya returns to Kei and Yu, telling them what he's learned about the castle's layout. The only viable way to defeat the enemy is to confront them in the hallway. Together with Terry, they launch a strategy, but the first attempt fails. On their second try, they manage to wound one of the orcs, but both Terry and Yatsuya are killed in the process. As he awaits revival, Yatsuya witnesses the orcs nearly devouring his ally. He also spots a young orc girl. Odio explains that she must be a future queen. Unlike the typical male orcs, rare females can be born to take on that role. He knows this from a book he and Jana once read, which also detailed the orc language. Yatsuya urges Odio to repeat a useful phrase to the orcs, but she hesitates. The only line she remembers is something vulgar. Meanwhile, the orc queen reaches the boat carrying the island's children. She tells them to hide. She plans to eat them on her journey. But first, she must return to retrieve her family. Just then, Tanner confronts the remaining orcs in the castle. Yu tries to draw their attention using the only phrase she knows in their tongue, while Yatsuya and Kei execute their plan. Fortunately, they kill one of the orcs. The other is only injured, but the lava they use fatally burns the young orc girl. Elsewhere, Yana begins feeling weak and suffocated. She realizes she isn't the only one. Everyone is being drained. The fire dragon is absorbing the life force of both the living and the fallen. Back on the boat, Feimer prepares to battle the queen. She wields an enormous sword and terrifies him. But when she sees a massive wave approaching, she seizes the chance to disarm him and go in for the kill. Just as she's about to strike, Shindu suddenly reappears, having survived the depths of the ocean thanks to the tsunami. She had removed her armor to stay light, and it worked. She now overpowers the queen and defeats her, while Hazazaki races to save the blacksmith and another islander. Both gasping for breath with lava drawing near, Yuka manages to secure more ammo. But she pays the ultimate price, struck down by the molten flow. Meanwhile, aboard the boat, Shindu is defeated by the orc queen. Enraged over her slain children, the queen tries to finish off Thanura. Just as she's about to strike, a bullet hits her in the back. She turns to find Hazazaki and the blacksmith behind the shot. Thanks to the disaster, the boat had drifted ashore. Severely wounded, the queen is finished off by Feimer, who delivers the final blow. In her last moments, the queen only wanted to protect her family, but failed. Once the queen falls, lava begins closing in on the boat, consuming the wounded mercenaries nearby. Back at the castle, Yatsuya flees from the last remaining orc, who has kidnapped the young girl. On the bridge, the protagonist tosses the girl off the ledge, but the orc catches her, only to realize she's badly injured. Yatsuya reflects on how humans try to wipe out future threats before they emerge, and though he hates that logic, he must now do the same. He throws them both into the lava, putting an end to the orc menace. With the battle over, Yu tells Yatsuya he remembers a boat arriving on the island with only the queen aboard. It said she was a prisoner who escaped, but no one knows why she was even sent here. He also warns that Yatsuya's energy is being drained and funneled toward the volcano's summit. Yatsuya realizes the fire dragon must be the cause. Meanwhile, Thaner struggles to steer the boat away from the approaching lava. He reflects on how he once left the island to escape its calm, simple life, craving excitement beyond the sea. But after traveling across nations, where people fought to protect their homes and loved ones, he realized that Giffen Island's peace was exactly what he truly desired. Ironically, it took leaving to understand its worth. With the remaining orcs defeated, Yatsuya and Kei ascend the volcano. Along the way, they meet an islander who confesses that he stayed hidden among the rocks instead of helping during the crisis. The heroes ask him to rejoin the group. But once they reach the summit, Kei rushes to attack the dragon and is instantly burned by its flames. Yatsuya retreats, uncertain of the dragon's intent or why it's absorbing human life force. As he flees, he runs into the same islander again. Without hesitation, he picks him up to carry him to safety. But the man begins to laugh, revealing he's actually the dragon bishop, the one responsible for summoning the fire dragon, Darius Reed, and bringing the orcs to the island. He was the one who smuggled the queen aboard. Shocked, Yatsuya hurls the man aside. Both are stunned, Yatsuya by the revelation, and the bishop by his own accidental confession. Thinking the hero brought him here just to throw him into a nearby pit, a fight breaks out between them. The dragon bishop casts a powerful spell, killing Yatsuya, but after several revivals, Kei reappears to help. Still, neither of them can match the bishop's magic. After defeating them, the bishop escapes, and Yatsuya realizes he's heading straight for the ritual dancers. While Yu remained inside the castle, a man suddenly showed up where she was and launched an attack. Shocked, the girl discovered that Raji, once admired on the island, was actually behind everything, as he had suggested building at the island's base. Just as Raji moved in to strike, the protagonist intervened and rescued her. During their escape, she requested a favor, and together they agreed to combine their magic to stop the enemy from casting another spell. But it turned out to be a diversion. Ka took advantage of the moment and landed a surprise blow. Still, Raji managed to flee on the dragon. Afterward, the group discovered a bottle filled with red liquid, prompting Kay to guide them to a location where he had seen a similar substance. It turned out to be a hexagram designed to drain energy, and also the place where the man had been hiding Jana. Jana and the mercenary began to feel their energy returning to normal. Meanwhile, victims sensed the presence of the hexagram too, so they decided to destroy it. She explained, however, that for the spell's energy draining effect to be completed, 6 such symbols had to remain, and 2 had already been destroyed. The mercenary then marked their island map with new lines, helping locate the rest. Once they set out and removed all the hexagrams, everyone's strength was restored, and the dragon returned to the volcano, bringing an end to the disasters. After peace returned, the remaining people gathered to honor those who had fallen in the conflict, including Cantil and Thaner. The following day, the Vam Mania festival took place, where Job Bafo was offered as tribute. The victim expressed her gratitude to the group for their help, while Yu embraced the protagonist and admitted that, if he weren't from another world, she would have married him. No one else in the group could figure out how he always ended up getting attention from girls in that world. Elsewhere at sea, Kentel was revealed to have survived the tsunami. As he spotted Ri flying by on her dragon, he called for assistance, only for a massive force to suddenly destroy both the wizard and his creature, stunning the mercenary. The one behind it was a powerful sorceress named Fatina, who had also helped Yuka during a previous mission. A few days later, the protagonist encountered a girl and a group of men. She introduced herself in English as Glenda, saying a girl dressed in white had told her they would meet soon, which was why she had come to film him. At that point, he remembered the game master's warning that he would soon meet the 6th member. Later, at Yua's grandfather's house, she revealed she already knew about them. Apparently 4 people had been posting online about traveling to another world, all describing similar experiences despite no direct connection. The posters included an Egyptian American, a French woman, and a Japanese individual. Although the protagonist believed his friends were the only ones transported, he now saw that others had been drawn in too. She went on to say she had tried to reach out, but the French woman had died of a heart attack, and the others hadn't replied, leading them to suspect those people may have failed their mission. The Japanese individual, it turned out, was Yuka, which didn't surprise the young man. The girl then asked if she could share her story, reminding him she came there to document his journey and create her own independent film. Soon after, the protagonist, Shindu, and Hakwak got ready to shoot their first scenes, assisted by Yu's friends, who immediately began teasing the protagonist about which of the girls was his girlfriend and why he hadn't mentioned them earlier. Shindu went first, as she had been the first to join the team, while Yasha played the role of the game master. Fortunately, the first takes went flawlessly. When the session ended, Shindu demanded payment from the protagonist, reminding him that she was a model and didn't work for free. He explains to her that everything he's doing is meant to benefit the entire group. In response, she asks him to speak to her and the others using the same accent he uses when talking with his friends. After they upload the video, someone leaves a comment claiming to know the place too, identifying themselves as one of the heroes who had also been transported to the other world. Glenda turns out to be a warrior who fights with an axe, leading them to realize that most members of the group, including Hakozaki, are fighters. Hakozaki had become a heavy warrior and leveled up while on the island, though she hadn't used her new armor yet because it was too cumbersome. Soon after, the game master presents a new mission. But this time, they must choose between 2 options: reduce addiction to the rainbow staircase in gold to below 3% in 90 days, or stop the destruction of Zira village within 30 days. As the protagonist weighs both options, KT makes the decision for everyone, choosing the second mission, saying it would likely be easier. To gather information, they travel to the city of Sel, planning to ask about the village. Upon arriving, they visit Cabel's home, only to learn that the woman they meet is actually her daughter, as 17 years have gone by and the warrior has passed away. Nonetheless, the young woman agrees to guide them part of the way, noting that her mother's proudest moments were when she fought alongside the heroes. Even so, the protagonist feels uneasy, thinking he's simply using her. Midway through their journey, they must cross a jungle, which confuses the kids since the village isn't marked on the map. Then, everyone realizes Glenda is speaking Japanese. She explains that while she hears everything in English, some invisible force must be translating for them all to understand one another. Suddenly, the kids spot a goblin ahead. Kate charges after it but is overpowered, and no one can stop the creature until Glenda intervenes and ends the battle. Still, the group feels uneasy, as goblins are typically weak. Yatsuya inspects the creature and concludes it had leveled up. Just then, Kate senses they're being watched, prompting the newest member to pursue the presence. This chase leads her to a graveyard, with Hyaki following closely behind. Inside a small hut, they encounter a frightened girl who calms down after realizing the 2 are heroes. Later, the girl reveals her name is Jez. When the kids question her, she says she initially ran because she mistook them for villagers from the nearby mountain. Yatsuya tries asking her to guide them there, but Glenda catches on that she can't. because Jez is actually hiding from them. The following day, the kids help gather food and water for Jez. During this, they hear a strange noise and find a man possessed by a small monster. That man turns out to be Jez's father. Yatso soon arrives and explains that other players had told him about this. It's a parasite known as the Wire War, which seizes control of a person's brain. The only way to eliminate it is for the host to burn themselves along with the creature. Jess, desperate, tries to intervene, but there's nothing they can do. The man has already succumbed. The infected proves powerful, striking Hakozaki, but the protagonist steps in and completely destroys it. He tells the group they should have incinerated it to keep the infection from spreading. Witnessing such horror, Jez collapses in shock. Later, while they rest in the cabin, the protagonist tells Hakozaki that if she ever feels she can't carry out such actions, she should leave them to him. He's done it before and is prepared to do it again. The next morning, Jez agrees to take them to the village's entrance. Some of the group members find this sudden decision odd. Once they reach a cave, they decide to set up camp, knowing there's still a long road ahead. The girl opens up to the group, revealing that in her village, there's a tradition called the Journey of Hope. In it, the elders are selected to venture out in search of a better place to live, since the monsters attacking them grow stronger each year, making it harder to harvest crops. With fewer resources, the village reduces the number of mouths to feed, often sending people away. Her father was among them, along with a man named Dan, and though they tried to plead with the village chief, their request was denied. Instead, they were sent on what the villagers now call the Journey of Death, as no one ever comes back. She stayed behind to care for her ailing mother and younger brother, but later escaped to find her father. When she did, he warned her never to return or she'd be executed. Still determined, she attempted to speak with the leader herself, but she never came back for her. So now she lives in fear, constantly hiding from the villagers. Thanks for watching. Check out this next video, and remember to subscribe Annie Zap.